right, so we're gonna get started now. I want to welcome everyone to another meetup here at Accessibility VR. My name is Thomas Logan, and I am from a company called Equal Entry. We're the sponsors of this event. We created this event as a way to have open discussion across the web, across the world on the topic of virtual reality and accessibility. And we want to make sure that we create as inclusive and accessible environment as possible inside of this space. So we do currently work with the Mozilla Hubs team and report feedback from this meetup. So if you do have any accessibility challenges or accessibility feedback of ways for Mozilla Hubs to improve, they've been really great that they have a GitHub repository of accessibility feedback, and they actively work on that. So that's something we really support and appreciate about this platform. We also, as you can see, potentially at the bottom of the screen or in the bottom of this world, we have captions coming in. These captions are being provided by White Coat Captioning, and we have captions for all of our events. We basically have Amanda here with us tonight, creating these captions, and we appreciate having those available, and those are also included on the YouTube stream. We have Jolly McPhee from the Internet Society of New York, and he is the person that gets together our video stream and helps us make sure that people can participate and come back and take the learnings from everything that happens at these events. With all that being said, I'm very excited to introduce Nicholas Perret to you today. I met Nicholas from various VR conferences, and I've been super interested in the 3D rudder controller. I think it's a very exciting device, and looking forward to learning tonight from Nicholas. Take it away, Nicholas.
Hello everyone. My name is Nicolas Perret. I'm French, so sorry for my accent. I am a senior principal engineer at 3D Rudder. And I will talk to you about the way of the VR world with a special version for accessibility, but you will understand why. But first, we need to define what is mainstream VR. And in fact, it's especially important for accessibility. Mainstream VR, it's VR for everyone. And everyone will be able to use VR in the future. Everything will be in VR, maybe in the future. And when I say everyone, this means everyone. This means that when one day in the future we will have a real mainstream, this means that everyone will be able to use VR. Everyone will have VR at home. It will not be possible to see the difference at all with someone normal and someone disabled. And I think this is very, very important. But today, the road of the VR world is broken. It's broken because the virtual world has not been truth for everyone. And everyone don't mandatorily know what they want, what they need, and even what is the virtual world. But to understand that, we first need to define what is the real price of virtual reality. It's not necessarily the price of the computer you use, not even the most expensive one. It's not necessarily the price of the headset you use, not even the most high-end one. And in fact, the price is more because of the way the VR are being defined today. And today, to do VR, you need space. You need a lot of space. But okay, do you have all this space in your house? Generally, your house have not been designed for VR. Generally, you have your house before, and you don't mandatory. It depends. Some people may, but you don't mandatory have one room especially for VR. So, in fact, generally, today, with the way the VR is designed, the most expensive part of VR, in fact, it's the space you need to do VR in your home. Because in some city, the space is very expensive. And even if you have space, you could break everything. You could break the TV, you could break the furniture because you are too much in the action. Because you don't see what you have around, because you have unset on the face. VR could be dangerous sometimes. And danger is not mandatory for everyone. I talk about real danger. The danger where you can be injured, and in real life, not in VR this time. Today, in fact, if you look at what kind of VR the, 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 the headset manufacturer try to sell you, it's generally for workout. Is everyone do workout in real life all the time? I don't think not everyone do workout. Some people may do workout. So why today VR is mainly understood by some people to a way to do workout and workout only. Even if workout in VR could be fun and could be a way to lose weight or to do some nice stuff, I really don't think that it's a good idea to try to make VR only to do workout. Do your grandma do workouts? I mean, I said it's for everyone. Okay, so this means that everyone could be your grandma. Everyone could be some people disabled. So this means if the VR today is limited to workouts, does this mean that it's not for everyone? It's only for people who want to do workouts. And in some way, it's a way to limit the usage of VR. This means, in fact, in some way that only the only people interested by VR are the people who want to do workouts. So maybe it's not a good way to think. This means that all the rest of the world are not interested in VR because it's only for workout. Because it's not mainstream today. And something very important in real life. In fact, not only in real life, in nature, in everything, is the path of the least resistance. It's something like a law. It's a law. You can almost apply it for everything. You can apply it to the nature when you have a short circuit. This is exactly that. When you have water flooding, it's exactly that. The short circuit, the electricity will go directly. It will not try to find another way. It will go to the short circuit. That's why it's called short circuit. In the case of the flooding, it's the same. The water will try to find the easiest way to go, the least resistance. And in the case of human, it's the same. Human are lazy by definition. everything need to be simple. Everything need, and it's not the case today with VR. VR, you can, it's not adapt to people in this definition. If you want to have a mainstream VR one day, the VR need to be adapted to everyone, need to be adapted to people, need to be adapted to disabled people with any kind of disability you can have. And disability, you don't choose to have it. You can have many kind of disability. So this means that it need to be adapted too. So, okay. If we think today, what's the biggest problem of VR that make the VR not be the VR? If you imagine what's VR, I mean, okay, forget what you know about VR. Try to forget and imagine what you was thinking about VR before you try it. I think before you try it, you was imagining to go in another world. And today you are limited in a little space in your room, but you are stuck in the same place. You are not able to really explore this virtual world like you was dreaming before, like you was imagining what is VR, what could be VR, because you didn't try. When you try it the first time, I'm sure you put the headset on the face and you imagine, you see around and you are very impressed. But just after that, you say, okay, I want to go there. I want to explore. I want to be able to visit. You want to be free. You want to have no limit and to be able to go everywhere. And it's not possible today. You want to interact with this virtual world with your hands. You want to activate some stuff in this virtual world, like in real life. But, okay. Is this mean that VR is not possible? So, okay, VR exists since very long time now. I mean, more than 20 years, something like that. And if we just talk about the new VR, the VR that made be possible with a new kind of electronic and with what Palmer Luckey give us in as a new hope of a new mainstream VR in 2012. It's still not mainstream. It's still not exactly what we dream. Okay, but to understand that, maybe we need to take a look on the past and to try to understand what the past teaches. And we will take a look about the personal computer. So how the personal computer become mainstream. So it starts by the first computer in 1971. So it's old. The first personal computer. I don't talk about big computer, okay? And after that, you have many company create computers. You have the Apple I, the Commodore PET, the Apple II, the TI-91, etc. And in the same time, if you look at almost the same time, you have the era where the mouse had been invent, and evaluate. So you have many company create computer at this time. And if you look at the number of company, you can compare to the number of VR set you have today, the number of company doing it, and the usage. The usage at this time was for passionate people, like VR today, or was for company because it was a way to have a computer, a microcomputer, personal computer to manage the finance or to manage some stuff for the company, like VR today. So this area is very close to what's happened today. But in 1984, you have something happen with the Apple Macintosh. The difference between the Apple Macintosh and the previous computer, it was that this computer was able to move something on the screen with a mouse. And for me, was the first step to make the VR mainstream. Okay, after that, you have the Windows one, that was not very good, until you have the Windows 3.2, and at this time was only Microsoft. Only one company for almost everyone. Apple will almost disappear, almost, come back later. Linux and other kind of Unix was still there, but was almost disappearing too. And in 1989, another event important was the World Wide Web. And with the mouse and the World Wide Web and Windows, in fact, between around the 2001 and 2009, something like that, in this ratio, the personal computer become mainstream. This means usable by everyone. And with some interest, not only application you have to install on it, but you was able to order something and to be delivery. You was able to study, etc., etc. And it's because of the mouse and because of internet. Okay. So if you take a look and you do an analysis about this, it took around 35 years for the computer to become mainstream. The mouse was a game changer, and the web definitively did the touchdown. So, okay, now we compare with VR. Okay, the first prototype go to the market. You have a clone of many products and many company, and you start to have some kind of and you have the incompatibility between product, and this is something changed for VR already, because now you have OpenVR and stuff like that. This means, in fact, it's possible, it will be possible soon to have the same API for all the headsets. You have a lot of personal usage and geek and passionate, and people want to do workout, why not? And for the computer, you have the mouse arrive, and you start to have some kind of compatibility. I mean, Windows, okay? You have a market consolidation, only Windows. And you start to have interconnection, interoperability, you have global service usage, internet, and mainstream. So today we are around the 4 of VR. And before we was, and we need to go to the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, and the 9 to become mainstream. Okay, so we need the mouse. What's a mouse? I mean, for a computer. A mouse, you have two things. You have the action and you have the locomotion. In fact, if we compare, you have the action and you have the locomotion. So if you compare to VR, in VR, you will have to separate this because in VR, the action will be your hands. And it's something exists since very, very long time. Even 20 years ago, they start to have some kind of glove for your hand to interact with VR. But for locomotion, people try to find many ways and try to be able to have a locomotion. They try to have some kind of treadmill, some kind of stuff like that. But at the end, nothing was very usable. And it's still the case today. To understand what's VR, first you need to understand that in VR, you are one of the controller because you are able to look around. So in VR, it's not only one device. You need to slice the device in many functionality. So with the headset, you can look around. With your hand, you can interact with the VR world. And you need to have locomotion. So do you generally walk with your hand? Generally, it's not too much people are able to walk with your hand, and in real life, I mean, so in VR it's the same. So why you really want to use your hand to be able to have locomotion? It's maybe better to use your feet. It's why, in your case, we create the 3D reader. But I'm not here to promote it, okay? I'm here to explain what could be the VR and why it's interesting for disabled. So 3D reader, it's a controller for the feet. So because you can use your feet to go in the virtual world, you have your hand free and you can interact freely with the virtual world. If you can see the video, you will see that it's something you use seat. So this means as you use seat, you are not tired. You don't need a lot of space. And in fact, it's more immersive than you may imagine because the brain works very well with this. You don't have any learning curve. It's immediate. You even don't have to explain. And to understand, in fact, is what I said. The VR, the mouse of the VR will be something like the interaction with your hand and something like the 3D reader. I don't mandatory say only the 3D reader to have a free locomotion with your feet. And in your case, we have another video and that Thomas can give the link to. The link is in the bottom of this image. It's using the Oculus Quest. With the Oculus Quest, you can have the hand, the tracking of your hand, and you can use the motion of the 3D reader. And we finished the device. It's not in the market yet, but we should now, in theory, work with Facebook to be able to do it. We was able to do it before. We did start to talk with them and start to work with them just before the COVID. And now we wait, they come back. Okay. The brain in VR. So this is what I explained before. The 3D reader use the plasticity of the brain. This means, in fact, that it become almost natural, like if you was directly connected to your brain was directly connected to the device in some way. And as everything is in your head and the physical part of your cell is not that important. When people will say, I want to be standing, generally they watch themselves in VR. It's like they watch themselves from the outside and they imagine they have better immersion because they watch them from the outside, but they don't watch them from the inside. And because of the way the brain works, you have less motion sickness because you use your feet. The thriller use the neural connection between the brain and the feet, and this reduces the sickness. It's not perfect, but it reduces it. So I put the conclusion here because something interesting with what we do for the disabled people is something generally is not happen in the nowhere. What we do is to create a device for everyone, and this device is usable for disabled people. This means the investment for this device is the same for both. And it's interesting for VR. It's also interesting for not VR. I think you had another presentation before about this, because you have many people can now play video game, and I think it's very important for them because this means they can do something. Okay, because it's not for all kind of disability, but it's interesting for some kind of disability when people have only one hand or no hand, for instance. They are able to play video game because they can use their feet. And we did work with Microsoft to be compatible with the Exact, for instance. We did start to work with Sony, but it's not, for now it's go nowhere, but maybe will one day. It work on PC. On PC, you can use your feet to go to internet, for instance, and only with your feet you can move the mouse and click on the page of your computer. Click, in fact, in your computer only with your feet, without actually mouse. And in the case of the VR, I come back to what I said before. To have mainstream VR, you will need to have something like the 3D reader. I don't mandatory say the 3D reader to have the free locomotion. And you will have something like the web today. I don't talk about the web VR. I talk more about the web of the VR. For me, the web VR is not mandatory the way for many reasons, because you see, currently you are in the hub, Mozilla hub, so it's nice, it looks nice, but it's not that nice. It's not exactly what you are, what you imagine to be the graphic of the future. It's very basic, very flat, very etc. It's because he need a lot of power to do something correct, and a web browser is not made for that. It's made to display HTML, not to display a very complicated 3D world. So we will have to create something different for the web of the VR, create something very adapt for the web of the VR. And it's very important to understand what is web in web, World Wide Web. Web means, in fact, the interconnection between the server. And this is what, this is it. This is what makes the internet usable by everyone and be able to be updated quickly, but for everyone, you can change everything, etc. Because you don't have to install something. You have to have the web browser, and after that, you only have to go to the web, and you get directly the information you want. And in VR, it's the same. In VR, you could imagine to have the same. You could imagine to learn something because you are inside the action. Yeah, imagine, for instance, the worldwide, the second war, or the first war. Yeah, the first war, and you go in France. Yeah, I'm French. Sorry, in the tranchée, and you can see the people, and you can fly around this, and you can learn that you have the German from one side, you have the French, Canadian, American in the other side, and they fight, they are stuck on this, they etc. etc. But you can see by your eyes, you don't read it. You don't have to read it like you do generally on the school. And it could be for that, it could be for medical. You can go inside the body, see all the organ and check something. It can be for many stuff. And with the web of the VR, this could help a lot to have the VR. It's not help a lot, it's a key. For me, you have two keys. You have the key, it's the locomotion, and the second key is the web. That's it. If you have that, we have the mainstream VR. Because the content will be here, will be there. You will have the content to do everything. You will have the way to go everywhere and to explore everywhere. Any question?
Great, thank you so much. Let's open it up now for questions.
Oh, hi Nicholas. I have one question. I wanted to ask you if aren't you adding more like costs to the VR users? Because I think that the most common problem right now, like why VR is not mainstream, is because of the cost. And you are adding a 3D, well, another hardware that people need to buy in order to play it.
Sorry, Pablo. So the question is around the cost of the device.
What I explained in the it's in fact the most important part of the cost is not the headset, is not the computer. The most important part of the cost today is the space you need. And in all cases, the headset, well, maybe not the computer, but it depends because it become even more powerful. And when you have a standalone headset, the price will reduce. You will be surprised in a few weeks about some price will coming. I can say all of that, but the price of the headset is not that important. And it's not what make people don't buy it. It's because you don't have the content. If you buy it and you don't have content, why you need it? It's more that the content is not there, and you don't have the content because you don't correspond what you expect. You do not correspond what you did imagine.
But yeah, I was thinking that because most of the people that I know, well, they don't even have like the $400 for buying a Quest, and I think that is like the thing that is holding VR into becoming mainstream. Like once the cost goes down, like I don't know, for $100 or less per one headset, then I think that that's the point where everyone is going to start having their own headset, like even though their living costs and salaries.
I'm not sure I agree. I mean, look at how many PlayStations are sold at $400. I mean, it's more has to do with content, I think, and access. I think Nicholas is onto something.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, just to tack on to, one of the reasons we currently host the event in Mozilla Hubs is from that accessibility perspective as well, that because you can join this in a headset and you can join it from a regular computer, that's a benefit, but then
yes,
also
but
a trade-off.
In fact, it's always the interest what is important.
Mm-hmm. So any other questions?
I wouldn't mind hearing him talk more about VR sickness, because I think in VR, this is a little bit questionable.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting about the foot and the connection, the brain to the foot connection, and maybe helping alleviate sickness.
Okay, the VR sickness, in fact, is based on the fact that your brain see a difference between what you feel and what you see. Okay, it's not mandatory linked to the ear. What's the name of that? What you have in the ear, or sorry, help me for my English. To have the
Vestibular system.
Yes, thank you. I was searching the word. It's not mandatory to that. It's only one part of it. It's all the sensor of the body. In the case of the VR, are important. And the fact to use the 3D reader, in fact, reduces the sickness, because when you do the action to the conscient action to have locomotion with your feet, it's something natural for the brain. And this means that for rotation, for instance, that is generally very sickness. It's a lot less sickness in the case of the 3D reader. And we have an experiment on the PlayStation 4 at the office, using, in fact, on PlayStation 4, using the one of the interests of the PlayStation 4 headset is the fact that this headset, you can go to 120 frames by second. And with this experience, we are at this rate of 120 frames by second. And on this demo, it's a very simple demo, but on this demo, based in fact on some sample from PlayStation, until now, no one has never been sick using the 3D reader, moving around like crazy on this room. So it's why I say it's important, and in fact, the frame rate of the headset is very important for that. In fact, it's maybe the most important part of it. We have the proof of it when you have some kind of shock. When you have some kind of shock, when you go down or something like that, you become sick generally. So it's not perfect. It's not, you don't work in all cases, but what I guess is in the future, with in the case of PlayStation 5, maybe with the headset of the PlayStation 4, because the PSVR 2 will arrive, I guess, in 2 or 3 years. It will be possible to have very, very interesting experiment, very experience, and you will not have this kind of sickness anymore. And in the future, with the headset and the power of the headset, you may have the same. And it's not today mandatory the case, because if you compare the headset, you are 90 frames by second maximum generally. You only have the index can go to 145. So you don't consciously see the difference, but your subconscious and your brain see it. It's why, in fact, it's very important. Another information about this is in France, you have a company doing fights. It's just a start, and with the COVID, I don't know where they are now, but they start to do a little device you can put in close to your eyes. In fact, it works with any headset, because you just put in your face, in the right and left of your eyes. It's something like a screen, and you have an accelerometer on this. And when you move your head, in fact, the accelerometer moves some kind of light close to your eyes, and this makes the same kind of effect, make that you are not sick. And they say you are not sick at all. I didn't try it, so I don't know, and I'm not sure. And I don't know today if they still exist because of the COVID, but they had a good solution for this. They were still in prototype. They should have sent me one, but I didn't get it yet. But I talked with them and looked like they are very confident that it's a good solution.
Great. So we've got time for one more question on this stream. So if anyone else has more question, we'll take one last question.
Okay.
Well, so I'll have a question. And so could you talk about the device itself, like for doing sort of like foot gestures, or like how you click, or what can kind of be assigned with the button presses from your feet?
I mean, okay, on a computer to replace the mouse, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. In fact, on the 3D reader, you have you have an accelerometer and a magnetometer, etc. You have an EMU, if you want, like you have in a set in some way. But you also have in the top, you have some load cell, like in a balance. Okay. And
Mhm.
with this, in fact, you can do like a button, in fact, with your, and especially for people disabled, they are very sensible of this. And you can do many stuff with that. You can click, double click, keep the stuff, etc. So it's work. You need to,
So
to,
like
to
how would
adapt.
you do like a right click, for example?
You can configure it on the computer, but it depends because you can say, because you have 4 axes, okay? You don't have only 2. So with the 4 axis, you have many kind of configuration. It depends the way people do. So you can use a rotation, for instance, but generally the people use a rotation for the middle button, the wheel in the middle button.
Mhm, mhm.
But in fact, you can use, for instance, more pressure in your left feet or in your right feet, something like that. You see, so you can do it.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. And